and welcome back to another wonderful day of VALORANT Challengers North America. We're about near the end of stage 1, and things could not be tighter as there's quite a couple of teams looking at relegation and looking at any chance to fight their way out of it. My name's Sierra Dawn. I'll be your host for today, and joining me on the desk, we have none other than Lemon Kiwi and
What's up, party people?
All right,
Sorry.
Vans,
Oh my God.
you know what? You can have that one, Vans. Is it silly of me to ask how you're feeling today, Vans? After that,
I'm feeling great. I'm just carrying over the energy over from VCTs to now. We're back. More challengers, and dude, this is going to be some fun games today because, yeah, not the coin like, oh, I'm so excited for today's games. I mean, there's a lot on the line, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm glad you're sad because I feel like you do a twirl right now with how excited you are.
You know, usually, yeah, I'll carry that over as well, but thankfully, I'm tied by a wire, so I can't do a full 360, but if not, you guys can always check the clips over of what I did on Monday there for those intros.
It's worth seeing, and I have to say I am impressed because I don't know if I could have pulled that one off. But we got to talk about this week and everything on the line here. Pull up our standings. I don't even know about y'all, but after yesterday's didn't really have anything on the line when we're looking at the relegation. But I will say that my predictions for this week absolutely shot after that. And now looking at the standings here, Vans, there is a lot on the line when we're looking at our bottom 4 teams.
Exactly. I was pulling up my invisible glasses saying, actually, those games were still kind of important yesterday for
the
TSM
top spot.
For the top spot, but also most importantly for the long run too, right? Because yes, we're looking at these records and if we're thinking close range and in hindsight, what's happening in the next couple of weeks, yes, it's important to try to make it into the mid-season cup and not get relegated. But if you're still in that pack where you're secured your spot, if I could put it that way, for the mid-season cup, you still have to play the long game to figure out how many circuit points you could have. So depending where you finish on that 1 and 10 for stage 1 and in stage 2 will also determine if you make it to the Challengers playoffs towards the end of stage 2. So finishing top 1 to top 5 to maybe even top 8, every single one of these ranks are super important for these points.
And we had some crazy results, like despite like what the stakes that we're talking about, which is making me hungry thinking about. Sad beating TSM was like cool. Very, I had predicted TSM, so that was a big toss-up. But Core beating Oxygen was the big head turner. I can't believe that happened. So that's why I don't know if anyone's predictions are safe for today either.
Never.
They really, really aren't. And of course, we have to look at the standings and what we're going to be looking at for today. Yesterday was the day of, as you said, Vans, it was the stakes when we're looking at the standings and stuff. But going on for today and tomorrow, there's a little bit of different stakes here. As looking at those bottom 4 teams, we'll be able to see them all face out over today and tomorrow to try and fight their way out of potential relegation. We're going to be starting with YFP versus MXS. Later on, together, we are terrific going up against Thinking again. And like, honestly, I feel like, Vance, when we're looking at that final game of the week, the Glazers versus Winthrop University, like we're taking this all the way to the bitter end.
Especially when it has to come down to like a head-to-head to determine if there's a possibility that the Glazers can make it into the playoffs or not, right? Because let's talk about it. I mean, we talked about how the circuit points were super important depending on the rankings, but at least for the mid-season cup, it's not too bad, even if we saw these upsets yesterday. But what's important are those bottom 4 teams: YFP, Thinking Men, Winthrop, and Glazers. All 4 of these teams, there's a lot of scenarios that have to pan out or that have to play out in order to see who's going to be the 2 teams actually getting relegated into that relegation tournament.
Well, let's talk about the first team that we're highlighting, kicking off today. It's going to be YFP going up against MXS. And talking about this YFP squad, this one is really interesting to talk about when we're looking at potentials like relegation here, because I feel like throughout the split, we've actually gotten to see quite a bit coming out from the squad, but it just hasn't been enough to be keeping them off of this line.
Yes, YFP is exciting, especially because Thief is facing his former roster of Moist Shopify. Then you got the Physic, Jonah, Penny Core, the original members of Mix-Up, who were also on Or Esports. And Penny is especially an exciting person to watch today because of the duelist choices he brought out against Oxygen. We saw some Reyna on Split, some Neon on Sunset, finally going away from that box that they've been playing in.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit too is like we always talk about this storyline as the Challengers is very top heavy with those top 3 teams, notably being M80, MXS, and Oxygen at this point. But there's been a lot of these games that really pushed to the brink by everybody else that's just under those 3. So there's not necessarily like a huge gap going in through all of them. It's sometimes like just for YFP, for example, you're almost there. You almost get a victory against OXG on Split, for example, their map pick, but then just fell short, right? So it's a lot of those storylines that I feel that if you just started watching Challengers now, you've missed out on at least all that storyline building up to like those up and coming teams that nobody really talks about, but always have a chance to upset.
It's tough though, because yes, you can look back at the history that they've had and like how close things have been, but we have to look at the hard numbers at this point at times, which is there is a very real possibility that they're about to get regulated. If they do come out on top here today in the series, Vans, there is this chance to put their fate into their own hands. This is definitely going to be a stacked matchup ahead of them, but it is possible. But if they lose, they're not quite done.
Exactly. If you want to look at it on the left side, it's what's green is super important, right? One victory against Moist X Shopify, either it's a 2-0 or 2-1, it guarantees that for YFP. But then if you're going to lose to MXS today, it really comes down to those scenarios you see on that second column and the third column. And the third column may look like there's a lot at stake, but it's just basically, even if YFP loses today, if both Thinking Men and the Glazers lose their matches this evening as a second game and Glazers game tomorrow versus Winthrop, then it's over for those 2 teams. YFP still makes it through. So, I mean, you always want to make sure that you focus on the left side here, that left column, you what you have control of here for YFP, and it's to beat MXS. And that's not going to be an easy one unless you're Wide River and you still somehow predicted YFP to beat MXS today.
I feel like Wyatt, I have to look back at his predictions, but considering the crazy day that we had yesterday, I think he might be the only one that's actually doing well. So maybe Wyatt's cooking over here. Maybe he's cooking. But you're right. It's definitely going to be a tough one ahead of YFP today. Looking at this MXS roster and the players they have, I mean, this is the team that is undefeated so far here in Split 1 Lemon. They have been so strong. They have such powerhouse players. I mean, there's always more we can see from them, but we've definitely haven't been shy of seeing some excellence here.
Absolutely, and we're having issues finding which player to highlight on this team, because maybe a lot of teams like really depend on that duelist to be the star of the show. But for me, just everyone is a star on this team, especially the initiators. I find this is one of the best teams when it comes to the initiators. Brock and Flya really trade on that role. They both play Sky. Flya will be usually a secondary controller, so we might be playing Astra and Harbor if needed. And they really like to experiment with that Harbor on Icebox. But a lot of double initiator comes out of this team, or Brock will even play Gecko and leave the Sky for Flya. So I love this flexibility on this team. It really opens up kind of the variety of strategy on any map.
Yeah,
Vance is just nodding. I thought you were going in
I was
here,
going.
Vance.
I was going to say something. I was like,
about the team. My bad.
I am excited. I am excited. Don't throw me under the bus, but I know Ludwig's watching and he's gonna think I'm a hater. I love MXS.
All right, I'm glad you got that in. Just for the fans out there. I do want to talk about MXS and the history that we had seen from them. Pulling up Flya's tweet here, talking about last week that we actually got to see something a little cleaner coming out from the team, which I think that's the biggest thing when I look back at this MXS roster here, Vans, is they have been winning, but some of these wins necessarily, like, they haven't been the cleanest sometimes. Sometimes things are a little sloppy or giving up a map they didn't need to. So I'm wanting to see the cleaner improvement, and I'm glad that IGL is actually speaking of that.
Yeah, and then that's why I wanted to, like, I was nodding at first and I wanted to add something, and it is actually in correlation with what Fly was tweeting over there. Because, yes, everybody is looking like they're really starting to gel and firing all cylinders, but if you're looking at the results of their last 2 series, they were very labored when, you know, technically on paper, you're not supposed to see them lose against a team like Thinking Man or lose against a team like Together We're Terrific, but they've been losing a lot of these pistol rounds. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they haven't won a single one of those pistol rounds in those 2 series. So it had to be a lot of like labored fights, and you really had to come back into like the later half of the game. You needed players to start to activate at the same time. Like Thinking Man, I think they beat MXS on their map pick to start things off too, and very one-sided on top of that. And I think that was like a split, if I'm not mistaken, 2 weeks ago. So really, when you're trying to come in that game planner and you're starting slow at that point, that once again, maybe is the reason why you're maybe putting a little bit of stonks into YFP upsetting MXS today if YFP could come out strong.
The pistol number, by the way, is they have won 1 out of the last 10. It is
there you
definitely been a little bit of a struggle.
An even more important number.
Yeah, but still, if we can clean that up and just clean a couple of these communication things up, I think we can see a lot of great things coming out. And going ahead of this series, when it's so important for YFP in terms of what's on the line for them, and for MXS to just show that they can be this dominant team, I wanted to bring up, Lemon, 2 kind of backbones of the team that we get to see here, because these have been consistent players throughout the entirety of the split so far.
Yeah, especially someone like Jonah from YFP. He's just been like the solution for them. He's so flexible. We've seen him on Killjoy, Cypher, Viper, Breach, KO. He's just filling out all these roles where Thief is usually the main Sentinel player for this team, but they'll trade off on KJ and Cypher duties depending on map comfortability. And going up against Vic Vans, I know you said this is like the anchor for Moist, and that's a tough matchup for Jonah.
That's why I think it's great anchoring roles from both of these players, because they have different roles depending on different maps, even if they're playing very similar agents, right? And as you were just mentioning here, Lemon Kiwi, it's the Brimstone, the Viper, and the Cypher. Those are the 3 agents that are played in tandem between these 2 players. But the difference is, for example, is Jonah is going to play a Viper on Split, and then Vic is going to play a Cypher on Split. So Jonah's potential to delay, to hold down middle, to anchor that portion in itself, he does a great job at that, while Vic has to play the Cypher role where he's going to be anchoring on the extremities a little bit more, or being able to do lurks. So you have a lot of like big plays that have to come out of these 2 players, and they've been kind of like silent killers for both of these teams, because they have had some great impact frags and even great openings for Vic last week. If you've watched that game, that really propulsed MXS into like a better victory, if I could put it that way, for lack of better words, right? So I think now you're starting to see that to what Fly was tweeting before. They're looking more cohesive. They're looking a lot better. They could fire all cylinders. Now, if they add the pistol rounds on top of that, then YFP is in for a tough treat today.
Yeah, well, you were talking about different agents that we see coming out from these 2 depending on the map. So let's talk about the map picks and bans going ahead into this series. And I feel like this is not necessarily a map pick and ban that caught me off of guard here, Lemon. I definitely think it's one that I'm so tired of seeing Lotus, I'm not going to lie. But coming out from MXS, this checks out.
Yeah, what's interesting about Moist is they have so many different map picks. Like, yes, they picked Lotus against the Oxygen, but then they picked Bind against Core, and then they picked Split against Thinking Man. They picked Breeze against TWT. So it's like Moist almost they're so confident at every map that they'd rather just pick the weakness out of the other team. While as I'm giggling and kicking my feet to see what YFP picked, they are going to Split, which is a map that Moist don't want to remember, Vance, because that was the map that they lost to Thinking Men 13-3.
Exactly, and I think if anything, despite that loss that MXS got against Thinking Man, I think they actually win the veto at this point, because yes, maybe Bedge overall is like I'm seeing enough Lotus and Split here in Challengers, but at the same time, you are playing to your quote-unquote strength, right? Even if it's a loss versus Thinking Man, you still have a lot of freedom, and you're confident in your style, because that's a map that you're also very comfortable in picking against other teams. So I don't necessarily think that the loss that they got against Thinking Man really hurts their ego or their confidence, or they're going to feel frail on that map. It's just, hey, one day some team was able to shoot better than us. They're the reasons why they won that map. And now you're looking at this veto. They have a secured potential 2-0 now against YFP.
I don't know. I'm like looking back at that Split too, because not even MXS's history of Split, but I'm just looking back at YFP on Split as well, because this is where we got to see the double duelist, the Reyna coming out from Penny, and 5 defensive rounds with no Sentinel on the team. So I'm kind of intrigued with what they're kind of cooking up here, honestly, Lemon. Yes, I think that overall it's a little bit MXS favored. I think even going into the series, regardless of maps, we're kind of looking at that, but I don't know. I'm excited. I feel like there is upset potential here.
Yeah, I think MXS picked Lotus because YFP just play to the meta, you know, exactly what everyone is running, nothing unique there. Split is going to be the one that's going to shake things up, as you said, because of the Penny Reyna. We really saw the variety out of Penny only in their last matchup against Oxygen, really changing things up and knowing that they have to make the big push at the end. And are Moist ready for this? Yes, they had a slip up against Thinking Men 13-3, but I think that's going to be an extremely rare occasion. I don't think that's going to happen again.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to chime into what we were mentioning before in that head-to-head between Vic and Jonah, right? You have to be anchor for the teams or anchors for the team. If you're looking at a map like Split, that's got to be that second one. If he's doing his job, where as a Viper, if you're doing it well enough, cycling the smokes with your controller, then you have an opportunity to really delay and hold middle as a solo player on mid. And when you're running the double duelist on the other end here for YFP, then you have a chance here to really add more aggression on the extremities to really close on the gap and push it towards that stack is. So that's the game plan that you kind of have here around that team of YFP. Has it really worked out in their favor? No, they got that loss, but at the same time, there's still ideas behind that too. So I wouldn't be surprised if that stays here on that second map, but we'll have to get there, right? They have to figure out Lotus first against MXS.
And Moist have different ideas when it comes to Lotus. They play two different compositions against Oxygen and TWT, whether it was kind of a Gecko Breach Initiator with a Brimstone against TWT, or against Oxygen, it was very much to the meta what something like YFP would run around the Viper, KJ, Raze, Fade, and Omen. So Moist are almost trying to try different styles against weaker teams, and I'm wondering what Moist are going to bring out against a team like YFP that I think they should still respect.
I think, like, looking back, when they swapped comps, they didn't necessarily, like, they kind of had a little stumble on Lotus. They kind of refresh, all right, change comps around, and then kind of go right back for it. So I think the most recent iteration of MXS that we got to see on Lotus fans, that with the Gecko coming up from Brock, I don't know, that's the one I'm kind of hoping for. I'm hoping that they're going to flesh that out a little bit.
Yeah, I think just in general, you're starting to see a lot of value just in Gecko in general for every single one of these maps. It's always... You could always make it work out just because how fast you could basically pick up all these your friends. I was gonna say another licensed game, but I don't want to do that right now, especially with Sierra on the desk. But yes, so there's definitely ways to really refresh that utility and actually bring a lot of value to a Gecko into your team. There's one thing that I'm missing though, is that a lot of these Gecko players are just basically using the wingman to just go for the plant, right? And I feel that there's better ways to min-max that type of utility on a Gecko to have some very strong clears. So remember, or when you're looking at the meta right now, there's a lot of the, hey, let's flash and let's KO flash on top of that, so you guarantee some players being blind. But you could do some very similar things as a single initiator as a Gecko if you're going to wingman and flash at the same time, so you're actually forcing your opponents to aim one single angle. And on a map like Lotus, when you could clear some very tight corners, for example, that entrance of C site on the left side of boxes, or even trying to clear the front B site, it's very important utility that you could do on your own as well, so that you don't necessarily always have to run this double initiator when you want to add a little bit more firepower with a breach, for example. Well, I mean, I guess breach is an initiator, but you don't have to scan at the same time, right? So what I'm trying to get to is maximize your Gecko a little bit more, and I'm hoping to see that from these teams.
What I was getting from that is your next job is looking to be a coach. You're just out here dropping the Gecko knowledge, like here.
Yeah, until they realize that it's wrong, and then I just get instantly fired, you know, because that's how esports is.
You can't be saying wrong stuff on the desk, fans. You're supposed to be the expert here. What's going on?
Oh no, I say with utter confidence. I'm the freaking best.
Okay. Kiwi, you do not seem convinced by this. Not the Gecko part, but the Vans being the best part.
Yeah.
I'm stuck with him for the next few hours.
Boom.
But I'm excited also for Lotus because Mata, I think, had an incredible performance last week on Lotus, had an ace to his name, and he'll be probably going up against Penny on that role. I know on YFP, they like to kind of trade off on duelists and stuff like that, but Penny versus Mata is a really cool duelist matchup. Yeah. I think Penny has been on the rise, especially with how well he performed against Oxygen last week, but Mata is still that guy. So we got a Canadian duelist matchup. I'm so stoked.
You know, as soon as we start talking about the Canadianness going on about here, that it's about break time. So we're gonna we get what we get, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna say it. When we come back, it's gonna be MXS versus YFP. Don't go too far.
Let's get into map number 1, everybody, of Lotus. And Vance is going to agree with everything we're saying. We're heading into Agent Select YFP versus Moist Shopify. Vance, I'm excited to see if we're going to get the meta. It's the Gecko from MXS.
I love it. I love it. So again, we didn't have a chance to talk about it too much too. I was really harping up on Gecko users with Gecko in general, but I mean, it's still in the hands of Brock, so that's freaking awesome. But the biggest thing for me is the Vic on a Brimstone, and that's very unorthodox, right? When you're looking at this roster, you're looking at the composition, you're like, why the hell do we have a Brimstone here? You need refresh smokes so that you could actually get things going here on your rehits on site. And how are you going to actually work the map here with no Viper? How are you going to lurk around? But I think it's really good now that you have a composition like this where just maybe those lurks aren't that important when you really want to re-clear and rehash the map as MXS by using utility, right? Because yes, you might not be able to lurk as much, but you could actually re-hit with the fault line that gets regenerated here, so you could fight Rubble a lot. And that Brimstone as a stimmy allows for you to break a lot of that timing that you play against the quote-unquote meta of the fade and erase trying to do the combination against you. So that's the important thing, looking at how you're trying to min-max. Like, it's almost like you've figured out how Lotus is kind of played, and you just want to take it to your advantage of what you're bringing to the plate as MXS. So I love this look, but they're starting off with a defensive side where they don't have a chance to really be as aggro, but maybe I'm thinking differently because they're getting ready to fight very hard here towards this A side.
And I'm wondering what stage of the round those Brim smokes come out, because like you said, if it doesn't regenerate, then it has to have value. You got 3 sites, you got 3 smokes, you got a lot of ways to use it. So initially, YFP sitting in a lobby, and there's not going to be a ton of util being dumped their way. They're going to see if maybe someone is sitting in rubble, being aggressive, but MXS are already at the small door.
This is all a camera play, right? So you already see the flash getting ready to get thrown out on the camera. The nades are going to come through as well. And then you have 4 players looking to fight against YFP at Rubble. So they had to be diligent right now for YFP to re-clear towards this orb.
They're already stomping away, opening the door, and there's the Gecko flash from MXS, forcing Physic into tree. And as soon as they merge, the spike is down. Why would your spike here be the first to go up? YFP, we're hoping to trade at a distance, and Bones will do just that. And YFP hope to take control of B and pivot into that. MXS at least have the info. That is where the push is coming from. As the plan goes down for YFP, they'll have the post plan with a 1-man advantage. Jonah with 3 this round brings MXS down to 0.
That is such a nice pivot in the mid-round for YFP, understanding that they've lost full control on one side, but they've noticed how much utility was being thrown on that right side of the map on A side, that they know that it's weaker on B and C. So when you're trying to finish towards a to B split at the beginning by making noise on that revolving door, despite you losing Spike, the opportunity or the objective now at this point is to dwindle down those numbers on the defense and isolated those players. They pinched the baby door perfectly, and then they were able to rehash that round in their favor. So a great pistol round to start, and that's really going to foil that trap play that started out here for MXS. Now they're just going for basic aggression towards this A side, potentially try to get an orb up ASAP for Mata. There's a little bit of a goop in the face of Fizzy. He's going to have to wipe that out. Somebody give him a towel. But yeah, definitely at this point, at least for Mata, he's halfway into an ult now. So that's at least a silver lining into, unfortunately, a trap play that didn't work here for the pistol.
And it's a good mix there, or half buy out of YFP. You got Bulldogs, you got Guardians, you got even a full-out Vandal from Jonah, who had 3 kills that last round. So YFP would have the advantage at the long range. Hence why A may be their preference at the moment, especially with how MX has held that baby door. It's already open. Sights, Physic, no, there's at least one there. That Gecko can flash them. YFP got to be able to trade off of Physic better than the last round.
Yeah. And then, of course, losing that pistol puts them out 1-10, unfortunately, for MXS here at this split for pistol rounds. And at least there's a silver lining here. They still want to gamble and stack towards B. That's where YFP once again is trying to finish here with 30 seconds left.
YFP hoping to pivot into B and only really getting information that there's 1, maybe 2, and now they have to surge in and hope for the best. And Jonah falls first. MXS just holding the B main and even having their breach there of Flya. Watch for the A rotation that will be called. Physic takes them out, and YFP quickly hoping to get this plant down. There's someone bouncing on the other side. Odashima in trouble. The Spectre is different, and so is Physic. YFP just full clearing MXS before the plane even comes down 2 rounds in a row.
Some very good damage done. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure for MXS, they wish they had a little bit more. That first pick from Mono was a great start there for them to start really pushing out towards that front B side. And once again, it's the fast reaction that YFP does right away in the midst of the chaos, and that they're able to stay calm, understand, and then pull back to where they have an opportunity with those weapons that you talked about here, Lemon Kiwi. They have the Vandal, the weapons to clear out these 1v1 fights close range towards this A side and at least salvage that round again. So 2-0, a gun round coming out for MXS. Once again, we're trying to get that orb up.
Sana.
Switching between Brock's like, I want to pick up an orb, sorry. He wants to pick up his util, not the orb. And finally, Mata's going to be able to pick up the orb, be one away from an ult. And then now we're refreshing our utility for that Gecko and already pivoting everybody towards this C side. Because of this wall that came out early from Vizik, they think that this is going to be a late hit towards the C site. And they're using a lot of util just to try to keep MXS at bay. So it comes down now to how much information is YP going to grab now towards this A site. And once they realize here that there's a little bit less, they could once again have freely the last minute hit towards BRA.
Kind of seeing who is sitting at B. Might have spotted Fly at the back there with the Prowler. And YFP, Jonah lost that expensive Vandal that he invested in that second round. Now left to a pistol. So YFP almost hoping to play more passive, play more back, hope for that first pick and upgrade their weaponry. But A has been a good hit for them. They haven't even needed to plan because YFP are just finishing off these rounds so quickly, but now dialing things back. YFP will get spotted by the Cypher Cam of Odashima. YFP established on A, and they even smoked off Odashima, forcing him to take a left side angle. He doesn't want to engage quite yet because reinforcements are still coming out from MXS.
There.
It's a 5 versus 5 retake. Right now, you're going to try to engage. The fault line's going to come here from spawn, and you're hoping to get a pick from Mata. But this is great delay off the C's nade. Finally, the opening is for MXS to take back now.
And Vic has the Brimstone buff set up at the top, and now Odashima can swing with Franz. He goes 1-1. YFP, time is on their side, and the Spectre from Thief does a lot of work, but Mata is better. The showstopper to end it all. And the defuse will be stuck. Nothing for Jonah to do about this, and MXS will take bonus.
And that's what we mean when, you know, you're playing your ranked games and you're like, why is our duelist not creating space? Why is Mana still staying behind? You saw that even when he went towards the drop, he quote-unquote baited Odashima at that point, because what this guarantees right here is that he could actually potentially come out for a trade. And if you get the trade in these 2 kills right there, that initiated that showstopper, and then you just see him starting to steamroll into the site and create that space that's needed here for MXS to win. So yes, it was still an expensive round for MXS to win at that point. They wish they would have been a little more clean on those initial engagement, but you'll get the round. It's a great way here to stop YFP in their tracks when they had such a good first and second round.
Yeah, surprised that Vizik doesn't want to bring that Viper Ball up yet. It would have made it a safer Sandmound take, but maybe thinking they could get a lucky pick onto MXS with the weaponry that they have now. Did cause Vizik to take some damage, as now they're back to a default setup after taking more.
I just love it from MXS so far. They're really comfortable of their protocols of how they want to play the retake, and they play because of this composition, right? You're not having like too much to be able to have like fast retakes or one. I mean, you can because you have a lot of util, but you don't have a lot of delays is what I'm trying to get to. So they're actually rotating so many players at once to just go for initial engagement behind this breach util. That's why Fly is always playing in the middle of the site here, so they can fault line left and right for the team to fight together.
Yeah, this is good. A good pivot out of YFP, just going towards B and already having that cleared there by Vizik. Even some KJ util, sure, near the spawn. But MXS know that YFP would like to pivot towards B, so now they have Mata who can throw boombots around corners. Brock throws wingman to check the corner around Mound. YFP have been discovered, but there's been a lot of free open real estate towards A, and with that pick onto Odashima, yes, it's a 4v4, but it's YFP with a weakened A site to plan on.
Yeah. And with the trips that are currently set up and where you're currently playing for MXS, you're really just trying to find information. So Odashima dying first is not too bad because you're not trying to go for trap kills at this point. So Mata has to be the initiator engager.
Oh, off contact from the util from Flya 2. YFP in a lot of trouble getting pincered. Now the defuse gets to happen, will be stuck, and YFP will keep the vandal that they have.
Very, very nice. Very, very nice in terms of the retake in the end there for MXS. Again, losing Otoshima is not a big deal because at least with the camera or him dying, he gets the information for the team. How many players walked in at this point? And he's still created enough of a gap here that you kind of separated YFP on the pulse punch position. Look at how far those last two players are at towards that rubble to try to play the pulse punch, while Mata, it's free pickings for him to get the backstab flank into the A site. So they have to be a little bit more grouped up here at this point for YFP to understand what position that they have and find ways that they could shut down Mata here on this retake, because he's definitely on a roll so far since these gun rounds. Satchel in. Bye-bye.
The swing came in so late from Bones. YFP tried to change up the pace. First time they're being that aggressive, satcheling into B. And MXS held that angle well. Now YFP hope to pivot, sprint into A. They got trips and a Cypher Cam to work through, so MXS may slow down this push. Otoshima's been that anchor at the back. He's got cages up, and YFP will get a plant physic with important engagement against Otoshima. And bottom rounds the corner. The plant still goes down, but physic is going to get overwhelmed in Tree. And MXS will take 3 rounds in a row.
So you see what I mean? Delay. That's all you need to do here at this point. And you saw the trips that he was placing for Otoshima. If you had YFP in a position where they actually had to smoke heaven, he had a great spot to even get a spray trip kill from the entrance of that A site, engaging into A. But overall, it was once again just YFP, at least to start off the round, a great attempt to try to break that timing of a fault line. They understand, as I was saying before, that Fly is going to play inside this B site, so we could fault line across the map to help the team. So they're trying to close the gap on him. They're trying to take him down. But I mean, Fly, when he's not using util, he's still really good at shooting and just cross-lined his opponent, Penny, that was trying to, satchel across. So that makes it a nice little start there for, at least on the defensive side, for MXS at the beginning of the round. But it was a lower buy that you had no matter what here for YFP. So good thing that they got a plant down. This gives them a chance here to really talk things through. And really, again, they realize the aggression on the retakes that you currently have from MXS on how Mata is currently playing, and then they understand that the breach is always towards this B site. They haven't really contested C yet. They're still putting a default wall on that side, but they're starting to understand from these rounds that are coming through that they're not really seeing Vic yet, right? So they have an opportunity to test out that C site now and maybe overwhelm that area. And it'll start off the same way as usual, a little bit of mound control with potentially like a haunt being thrown here from Bones to see how much aggression you currently have on mound. But this is a great opportunity here for YFP to test the waters, and as I say that, they ping and then they fall back towards the same site.
I'd like to see, I love Bones' util, but I wish Penny got more help on the satchel entry into B. And MXS have a lot of retake potential. They are very good at using the Brimstone stim from Vic on the high ground. They got Fly's breach util through the walls on A. That's been a lot of their success at breaking up the structure of YFP once established on the post plant. So there's a Nightfall to push anyone out of tree. And also usually Otoshima, who sets up at the backside, but he had plenty of time to avoid the Nightfall. He will be, protected. He's got trips, he's got cameras all over the place. YFP have already taking care of that and the plan.
This is good too. At the same time, they had Jonah pick up a lockdown, so they wanted to up the gear. Now using lockdown to delay even more. MXS, though, they still have good utility for the retake once this lockdown is done. So they have to be ready for RFP. We talked about them having to be a little bit more grouped up, and they're all grouped up towards tree here to fight.
Yeah, the attacker's lockdown was only going to buy them so much time, and Penny swung too early. The rest of the team is in tree. Penny is just bait, and MXS just have to dislodge those people from tree before time runs out. YFP just has to play their lives, but Wingman is going to do the job for them, and MXS get the firing squad ready as soon as YFP emerges, and Mata makes the lineups look that easy.
And they destroyed Wingman almost on time at that point for YFP on that post plan, but goddamn, was that a not good plant there for YFP? Because we talked about how grouped they were towards this tree site to fight, but the plant was always for long. They have a little bit of delays with what you had on the nanostorms there from Jonah, but when you have to try to swing back in that spot to try to fight right here in this single spot when everybody's stuck towards tree, there was a little bit of miscom, I'd like to say, of how they wanted to play that post plant. Behind, they had so much time behind the lockdown that they used that was not contested in the end to really try to win that pulse plan for YFP. So things are starting to slip a little bit through their fingers, and MXS has good control right now since they lost that pistol round in second round. And now YFP, they have a second life. Penny could grab this orb. Now they could engage towards that C side, as I mentioned before, for them to try to test out Vic inside C. And he misses the satchels.
Well, he got through the smoke, and Odashima is going to stay in his. Heard that showstopper and emerges. No, sticks to Waterfall. Wants the full retake with the squad. MXS now have a 3-2 split. 2 in Waterfall. Thrash is coming out from Brock for initial info. And YFP have, I think, Penny locked up from that Thrash. So YFP in trouble. They're going to use the Viper's Pit. And YFP hope to protect themselves, but they're emerging right to the line of fire. Not expecting MXS to already be around the perimeter. But Physic will trade with 2, but it's not enough. MXS unstoppable so far.
Mata is freaking amazing on these retakes. I mean, you just look at how he plays individually outside of that pit alone. They got some information off that Thrash that you had somebody that did get detained. That was Penny on the top of the boxes. But even though he misses and throws a Rosa ult, look at his position right after here at the bottom of your screen, playing around these boxes and isolate. I mean, that, if anything, again, miscoms from YFP. Instead of doing a 3-2-1 to guarantee that trade, now you're giving away your lives one by one because you were so separated by the showstopper incoming from the defenders. So you got to be a little bit more calm here in the chaos, like they did in their first 2 rounds for YFP. But if not, MXS so far are definitely running away on their defensive side.
You must.
All right, the boom bot will ping that YFP close to rubble. So good teleport back by Thief. Unsure if the snake bite too was gonna block him off from the rest of the team, or also the smoke. So YFP not wanting to lose someone early. The post plants have already been difficult enough. They've lost now 5 post plants in a row. YFP gonna use the Prowler. Fuse close and mound, do a little jiggle peek. No one's peeking yet. And YFP may just be heading to C, but there's also a default. YFP are also looking at A.
Yeah, and you can focus a little bit more on B side too, understanding that YFP has a lower buy, stingers. You can really try to rush towards that B side and really storm through as a group to get plants, which is why you're seeing a lot more players on this side. Why? Because Vic also is playing on C, where they're playing semi-passively, right? If there's a lot of util coming in towards the C side, he has orbital strike for delay or for retake. So they have the perfect bodies on fighting towards this B side, and they have perfect util here the more YFP waits.
Such a good camera too from Odashima. He can just see down A long. No, nobody's there. The hit has to come into C. YFP bring out the Prowler, and Physic an important win there with the Stinger against Brock. And YFP just trying to clear these guys from the smoke. But Odashima with the rifle is a problem, and YFP has dealt with them in close range. The machine guns work out, but the spike doesn't get planted, and YFP just get taken out again.
That's what we talked about, why Vic is such a good player and a silent killer and using great utility for the team. He used that orbital strike to delay instead so that his teammates could come in. And despite having a little bit of overheating from MXS, not as well coordinated for the retake, he's still alive at 22 HP. He finds the perfect timing inside the site that even if his teammate Flyer dies from Waterfall, he had both of those last 2 players lined up for the kill and secure the round for MXS no matter what. So that's the type of plays that you're expecting here off these 2 players that you highlighted, not only from Vic on one end, but from this gentleman at the middle of your screen during his timeout now from YFP. That's Jonah 6. So you can see some great value that they bring right now to these 2 teams. So very well done, at least on that previous round for Vic and YFP already. Before they actually get into the second half, they're already burning their second timeout, which means they have nothing left here for the rest of the map. And they're trying to salvage as much as they can because this is their attack side, right? They should be doing much better on their attack half, playing a more meta comp, understanding how they could lurk around a little bit more, understanding how they could work the map a little bit better. But it just can't seem to find some good positioning here on their post plans.
And those smokes just make that C site so uncomfortable for YFP. Even with kind of the close range guns that they had, they were able to go toe to toe. But yeah, the orbital strike just caused a lot of noise, a lot of chaos, and YFP had to back away. And then that's when the swing happened for MXS. And that is why I said just the initiators and how they retake sites is what is so commendable about MXS. And that's why YFP gotta use that second timeout, because nothing they've done has worked.
Right there.
Exactly. So they need to iron that out a little bit more. And MXS has something else to say, pushing out towards front B and to get first blood. That's a nice little pivot going in for MXS, changing the gears on their side and not giving a chance for YFP to work that map like they always tried to do here this first half.
And YFP are like, all right, if you're going to kill us in spawn, at least we can try to use this extra space at A to get established without the smokes and the trips or all these things that YFP have to deal with. So they got the attention of MXS. They pulled them towards A. YFP pivot to B. But there's Fly with the rolling thunder to try and prevent the plant. And YFP completely leave it. They're actually pretty split up. And there is Penny. Maybe could catch Fig.
You should have a
the start of a round being turned around by YFP.
Especially with the lockdown, but it's down a little bit too early. There's still a chance right now for MXS. I mean, they're going in. They're going to try to fight this lockdown. Now you give up. After Fly dies right there, this is a great round for YFP. We'll talk about it as soon as these last two players will try to retake the site here.
Mata and Brock, they've been through worse before. A good round for YFP to stop the momentum. Thief is on his perch. And there, the paint shells force Brock back. They know exactly where he is. They're even going to pre-fire, and Brock doesn't even care. He wants to do what he can. And YFP will take a round. Finally, it's been a while. This is anti-eco that YFP took around.
Exactly, and at that point here, actually, and you're looking at it from MXS's perspective, it's the first time they finally encountered the lurk coming out from Jonah, and that was something that they weren't afraid of because they were just winning retakes every single time. So that was the first thing. Despite them getting first blood, losing their Cypher at that B site was one huge thing. But then that tap onto the B site and then TPing away there from Thief, that was the big thing that baited out that rolling thunder. And then everything was in the favor of YFP. You had players playing defaults in different positions. You could try to get backstabs all around. This is very, very nicely done. But we'll stop that for now. We have once again a quad push outside of B and then a re-push towards the A site where YFP is heading into now.
She was getting some damage in just to see if he could pick someone through tree, because that's where the Prowler came from, and doesn't get anything for his efforts. He was stuck and unable to escape, so MXS's retake has to be with a 3v5. Penny will patrol the left side of the site with the boom bot while the rest of YFP push the right. Thief uses the ult to teleport to B to get a quicker plan.
Thief has been doing a great job so far, just consistently rotating MXS away here from these positions. But again, it comes down to the first macro you wanted to do, the ideas behind YFP of understanding that MXS are continuing to stay grouped up. That was very well done there for them to work the map here. Great position for the pulse plan as well. It might be even a save here for the last three players of MXS because there's practically any util. You have maybe a wingman, but no flashes to get back inside. It's very hard to retake B with less util. So hopefully they'll be able to save their weapons. That's Mata about to come head-to-head against Penny. And in that case, you really don't want to do that because win or lose, Mata will have a showstopper in the next round. So I love that you had a sixth sense a little bit there for YFP and you stay away from those overextending and try to hunt down against your opponents because that could be a very, very important ult for MXS in this round right here.
And YFP have had more success once they've kind of faked one site and pivoted to B. A lot of the times they've just stuck through A. They've been stuck in tree with, I think, lockdowns that were a little too early. I would have liked to see them later in the rounds just to really catch MXS in a bad spot where they are going to forced to make a bad decision potentially, and there hasn't really been too many bad decisions out of MXS when it comes to the retakes. They've been so successful at breaking that. YFP's post plans have looked better when MXS are late to the rotate, when they've pivoted to another site, when MXS are late to the party. So I think YFP are picking up on that, and MXS are trying to figure out, okay, how can we have kind of a backup plan at B, someone to make that call on the pivot earlier so that those rotators can at least try to shake up the plant on B before it happens.
Yeah, I think MXS is slowly starting to figure that out as well, that their quad pushes, that's 2 times that they're doing it here, where they're pushing front B site. First off, getting a kill, second time breaking the turret, yet they still lose the round. So YFP, it's just a repeat of that pistol in that second round where they're under chaos. They just up the tempo into one side, and actually the sheer number of numbers and also having better post-plant protocols since that timeout allows for them to get these last 2 rounds here to make it 6-4. So that's very nice at that point. So MXS, maybe after this timeout, they're like, hey, let's go back to what was working for us here. Just add util, keep them at bay, and then not try to aggress too much at the beginning of this rounds and use what we're good at. This retakes, engaging Mata into these protocols to retake the site.
Physics throws the snake bite right onto the orb too to try and deny that out of someone like Mata or Brock working towards those ults, but Mata will still grab it. Had the showstopper, but YFP gonna satchel into C. This is gonna overwhelm Vic, and he has to back away. He's getting smoked off there by the Omen of Thief, and the boom bot may just discover him in the corner.
Oh no!
Off this Viper. Physic doesn't turn fast enough, and he should have waited for the intel off the boom bot. YFP will lose one in the process. Numbers are even. Post plant even, but Penny has to explore outside the site. YFP don't want to be trapped like they were last time. The neural theft will maybe give MXS an upper hand at intel as YFP have their backs against the wall, but Bones just has to land those shots. It's up to Brock. Now with the shots towards that flash, Brock can start to defuse. Draw YFP's attention. See, Brock will be challenged. We'll get halfway. Knows the wingman was destroyed from someone on the left and couldn't get Thief off the sand mountain. What a great pincer out of YFP.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned Vic, but there was an opportunity that Vic could have become John Wick at that point in the back of that C site, because there was a potential bad timing from YFP behind that boom bot that more players would have pushed out towards that spawn, and he would have had more than one. So great reactionary plays there for YFP to instantly trade that out. And again, right here, put themselves in great positions in the end here on the post line, even getting positions where they avoid the showstopper at the maximum that Mata had to engage back in the site. So that was very nice for that play for YFP. And they have a chance here to tie up the last round, with the last round of the first half, rather, on 6-6 scoreline. For MXS now, I mean, they've been having a pretty decent buy every single one of these rounds. Yet, unfortunately, not enough rounds behind those buys in their favor.
Well, MXS, no, the hit is not B, not through C when they went through the BC doors, so there's only one place YFP can be, and they've already planted. MXS hoping maybe they can get Thrash online, get that easy kill, showstopper, being aggressive. YFP land nothing off of that, but I like that they're not just gonna sit back and let the retake come to them. YFP are gonna take the initiative, punishing MXS if they're late on the rotate. Now that the snake bite is gone, Bones could be ready to swing, would ideally like from util, but there's no paranoia, nothing left but the nightfall, and that's 3 for Bones. It's a huge dent into the forces of MXS, and the Thrash was there, but Brock can't do it all on his own, and YFP tie things up after being down like 6-2.
Yeah, getting 4 rounds in a row to tie up the game 6-6 is, again, it got down to what I like to call the swing round, when you started getting a lot more ults here for YFP, and they did a great job cycling every single one of those ults to get the maximum value out of how much they're able to do there. That showstopper in the nightfall, one creating space, one getting information in that round number 12, that lockdown that they had on the seaside to get more space. I mean, they've done it at the TP as well that you had from Thief. Every single one of those ults were actually so important for every single rounds that they've gotten in their favor. But again, that's the reason why they had to burn 2 timeouts. MXS now has opportunity of the attack side, and potentially even, I think they still have their 2 timeouts on their side too. So they have an opportunity now to, actually maybe they have 1 left, but they have a great job here. Yeah. So Moist have 1 left, so they still have a chance here to get some sort of control now. And what's important is to win a pistol. They haven't done that yet. They have an opportunity right here.
Yeah, Physic got revealed himself thinking someone had just walked through the smoke, and it was a nice fake out by MXS. And now as they shift over, they'll keep Mata on Sandmount just to see who else could be coming out of there. But now the smoke is reestablished there from Thief, so I don't think YFP have to worry too much about C, but where the pivot could be going. MXS ready to surge into B. There's the Gecko Flash and the Breach util, and good timing on the Viper Wall coming up out of Physic. That'll be out of the picture now as MXS open the door from B to C, and you're going cross-eyed just trying to see where MXS will end up. And it's now only up to Penny in a 1 versus 4, but MXS weak, but they got the spike planted. And now that is over. Penny knows, they know exactly where Penny is coming from. This is going to be so tough to do with just satchels and a classic.
Satchel out.
I mean, they're low on HP. There's that first kill.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. You know, the molly from Vic just came from Sand. Finishes off Otoshima. Rocket's the most healthy. Could be using Vic as bait too. I know I would. And no, Penny brought down to 17. Now swings against Brock, and it's not the best of coordination between Brock and Vic, but Brock's mechanically very impressive.
It was so doable there, though, and so unlucky for Jonah that he comes out with 2 right clicks, gets 2 dinks, and both of those players are lower in HP and don't die. That would have been such a different story there for YFP on a retake, giving more chances here for Penny to win this 1 versus 4. Again, a 1 versus 4. It was 22 and 5 HP remaining for the last 2 players. But that was very nicely done, at least for MXS to run that bait on that B side to get the C plant in the end. But that's why the gap is not that wide. Again, if I want to talk about challengers, these players can actually shoot here for whatever team you're on right now, whatever rank you're in this stage 1. You have a chance here to make this very close and really make the top 3 sweat right now.
Oh, great early pick out of Mata. Who pushes in the A lobby like this? YFP did not download this strat whatsoever. Now 2 left. Physic around the corner, very weak. Teammate, other side of the world. Jonah says, "Good luck, brother." We'll just figure it out when they plant. MXS still have to do that.
Good luck, brother. We tried a special play with a special team, but no Tuesday for you.
No, it's Thursday, my dude. Okay, there goes Wingman. Not even gonna try to shoot it, get the spike down. We'll do so at the last second. Physics looks at the Wingman. Gets shot by the Bulldog of Brock. MXS now brought Jonah all down to his lonesome. And not doable.
Yeah. I mean, it was still, again, joking aside, it's still a special teams play, right? You tried to pinch in on extremities. You made it very expensive against your opponents. You're forcing them to buy shields into this moment and having a lot less credentials here going into what should be your bonus round for MXS. Look at this buy round. You're still trying to figure out what you want to buy around for Flya because he's playing Breach. He still has to use a lot of util. Could only afford a share. So this gives a chance here for YFP to really close that gap once again for YFP. And by the way, that was an MXS piss round that we were talking about that they needed to win before, right? So that's actually really good for them to kickstart that attacking side.
No, YFP tried to adjust their defense, thinking, okay, well, we let A be completely free, and they get just manipulated to play into a corner in the paint shell. Punishes them in that regard. YFP get orb, they get all their Echo util back. And at least with how slow this is going now, it allows YFP to group back up. They don't have any eyes on Baby Door, though, and that's where maybe Physic has to rethink and see if they could get a crossfire going, because on the other side it's Thief and Tree.
Yeah, I mean, you still have a minute to work with right now for MXS. So I like that Odashima's falling back slowly to try to re-clear, but they're still too afraid to clear towards front B. So they can't really go for a Hobbit or a Baby Door break to rush into this B site. You're just going to play the power numbers because you have a bonus round. Just try to open up this A site, especially here with this Thrash.
Well, Thief swinged as the Thrash came his way, and MXS had the Boombot going into Baby Door, and they have options, but the plant will still go down A. It's a 1 versus 3 for Physic.
Toxin screen down.
And you just heard the door in Tree. Now that he brings his wall down, he spots one in rubble. His location is revealed too. Physic's gonna take a safer position, not wanting to be swung on by the person in Tree. You heard Vic stepping up near the door. Will be mollied off the spike. The precious seconds being taken out. Physic with a great swing onto Odashima is left with 2, but this molly lasts forever. Gonna tap the spike. Gecko flash out. Brock just playing with his food at this point. Little jiggle peek, and Brock still wins that.
Done here.
I love how it was just like a speed demon being Foon pretty much after he got the stimmy to look back into the A main that is Brock. And if you guys don't know how Foon is, well, or who Foon is, then you gotta go back into watching some source videos there on YouTube. But nonetheless, I gotta say, it was an opportunity there for YFP to really close around that gap, as I was mentioned before. When Mata continues to activate and continue to have big numbers and great impact into a team, just like he did on those type of entries, it makes it a lot more difficult there for you to try to come back in that round. And like I said, they had to come in as a group. I love that they still had to Thrash to use that as a scouter to find information instead of the Space Maker being Mata. And then they were able to get all that information towards A for a nice little pulse plant in the end. So that is a great bonus round converted. YFP has to go back into a semi-buy a half buy to get ready for the next round. Small shields across the board, stingers, and grouping up for a gamble stack towards this C site. And it's being read correctly, at least to start at the beginning of this game here for MXS, because they're looking to pivot towards B. But remember when they did this before? They made that flash, they made some noise, the wall came up, they opened the door and went towards C. This time, because there's no wall coming up, they only want to use it off the turret. There you go, yeah.
Made the pivot, and MXS run into B. And I like that Thief is adjusted towards C. Get some better paranoia angles from whether a C entry was going to happen or maybe into B. Now MXS may be sandwiched between a rock and a hard place, depending on how this frontal fight will go for MXS. Now getting hit by the Fade Util, and MXS in a dangerous position where all three angles being taken by YFP, but flashed up. YFP caught. What a great job out of the initiators once again of MXS, who have closed down every angle that YFP have pushed from.
Yeah. Again, I think there was an opportunity there for YFP to really push the opponents towards their stack on that C site if they did the same protocol of walling up instantly as soon as they heard util being used towards that front B. And when that door opened up, they're like, oh my god, let's start rubbing our hands together, they're coming here. But then they realized thereafter that MXS just planted towards the B side and made it a lot more difficult. Yes, it looked like they were a pinch, but there was still too much util coming out from Fly. I mean, he's at 11 assists right now with the amount of flashes that he's pulling out for this team. He's doing a great job here activating Mata, currently at 25 and 11. MXS has full control now of the attack side. Oh, he got teamed fault lines.
It happens. Mata tripping up, but at least, you know, the brim smoke is giving him some cover. Now push A stairs. Now Thrash can come out from Brock to get some info around B. The YFP will not be fooled. They think this is an A take, and they're going to make sure they get some bodies on B. But now MXS, they fake it, they go back to A, and Mata would set up on Rose to at least go 1-for-1. And then the pulse plant. So one-man advantage for MXS. Otashima with the neural theft is going to give the edge. YFP, it's all up to Penny, and his location is known. And now he doesn't have health. He's got the showstopper. Would you really want to invest? It all depends on how this next turn against Brock goes. You heard where Brock is. You heard him reload. Brock just runs across and still wins that.
Oh, man, that was unfortunate there, but a great read for MXS and a great fake that it actually initiated there towards that B site. The Thrash to go into B. Remember when they had the Thrash a couple of rounds ago in their bonus, they committed towards that A site. Now that they're using Thrash to drone into this B site, you saw the instant pivot coming out from YFP towards B, but they always kept Mata for MXS inside that staircase. So it allows for you to get space control on that staircase, the wingman to go for a plant, and you catch everybody else off guard. You talked about that showstopper that was saved in that previous round there for Penny. That's going to be the most important piece of util this time around now for YFP, as they have such a lower buy. They're trying to buy around that Vandal, around that showstopper. This is a force buy that could be very costly for YFP should they lose this round here.
One away from Rolling Thunder. Fly gets the orb. And Deep was ready for paranoia. And the showstopper comes out from the defense. They get kind of pushed back by the boom bot that was left behind there by Mata. So YFP get nothing for their efforts, but they at least did confirm intel that the hit isn't happening at C. MXS go all the way to A. They lose someone already. So YFP can just continue picking them apart. Wall comes up for the Viper there of Physic, trying to slow this down.
Back to me.
MXS establish themselves to maybe go through tree. Man, they are making a lot of noise. MXS want to bring this to a gunfight. YFP can even have Thief get behind him if you want to be really cheeky with the ult, but he's going to try and support the team from the front, but MXS win almost every gunfight. Brock is just mechanically a master. And YFP now winning 2 versus 3 retake.
That's so tough. They have to go for this too because they invested so much, unless they want to save these 2 rifles, but yeah, good luck. Penny falls now. Economy is going to be in shambles for YFP at this point as we have map point for MXS. I saw the idea behind what YFP was doing, seeing how a lot of these players are playing these pulse plans from Baby Door, or Unbreakable, or Hobbit, however you want to call it. But they had two players getting ready to fight in that area. That was Jonah and that was Penny. So despite them getting first blood, they already used the showstopper for that. So they wanted to use the raise to try to flank from behind so that they could actually pinch across. But every single one of those players from MXS started pushing towards the spawn and really caught YFP off guard. So now you're hoping that your Guardians are going to be mini ops so they could actually win these duels long range against MXS, but it's not looking too good here. Yet a round to be won by YFP on the second half. MXS has everything.
Thrash is ready.
Util, ults, Thrash to now secure the map.
And it's great that Brock and friends can just take this inch by inch, pick up the Gecko util and go again. The Thrash leads the way, discovers maybe Physic in that corner. You got a judge from Physic who can't see anything but hopes to do damage and runs headfirst into the smoke. YFP also have the lockdown in place. MXS will pivot, but right into the loving arms of maybe someone like Bones.
Wow.
Up against Brock. That was a great kind of pinch out of YFP to just read exactly where MXS were going.
Yeah, a huge pinch by YFP, and not only in terms of winning those fights from rifles, but it was close range battles with Guardians that still came in their favor. So we wanted those to come in to their rescue, and it did. And not only that, they didn't have to use that many of those ults that they picked up through these kills to actually win the round. Only the lockdown was used. Now they have a Nightfall to use in this round, a pit to hold the defense. There's some breathing room right now for YFP, but they're still 5 rounds behind against MXS. They have to be immaculate in the ways that they want to play the defense so far, and they start with an early pit on C side, and I like it because the Thrash was already used by Brock on that previous round, so any type of opportunity for a deep clear with util is actually not available with this composition for MXS unless you're trying to go behind a boombot. So you're really keeping MXS now towards this B and A setup that it currently has 2 players there for Season 8, Nightfall for retake, and delays here from a KJ on A site. So far it looks on paper that it's won here by YFP. Nice shot by Bones to start.
And I like the adjustments out of YFP's defense too, because they had Jonah on C, who's now at A. They're still trusting Thief to support Physic over at C. They just have a good split throughout the map. Now, the orb was tapped at A, the orb being opened. Jonah is gonna need some help, and there it is. It's Bones with the Nightfall to slow down this push, and the Prowler to get more information. Smokes too out of Thief to block off MXS or keep them trapped into tree, make them uncomfortable. And this may force MXS to pivot into B, where guess what? YFP have 2 people set up. MXS have to play this from front to back. The crossfire from Bones is there and couldn't get enough done. But this is pretty even trades, but we're left with a 1 versus 3. Once all the dust is settled, Mata at least has the spike. He's being loud, seeing if tapping the spike will prompt the swing. Penny gets caught in the headshot.
No way.
Physic. Mata is that guy going for showstopper 2 seconds.
No time.
He chose the wrong side. YFP survive.
What a nice try. He thought that Thief was going to try to hunt him down so they could delay the plant, but I love it. The calls to say he's so far not planning, just stay behind. Thief just played it smart in the end, but you saw what they were trying to do there on that end for Mata on a 1 versus 3, and thank God there for YFP that did not happen. It almost looked here on the defensive side, though, before this engagement, before this clutch, that could have been such a huge clutch for Mata. It was a beautiful flash that came out from Thief. I thought it was just thrown preemptively, but it was perfect there for Jonah inside the site to get the first pick and really disrupt that hit from MXS on the last second pivot in round number 20. Now round number 21, though, economy is still very good for MXS. Full gun round versus the full gun round of YFP, but there's no ults here. It's cycling back now closely in favor of MXS as they grab this orb. They have now a Brimstone ult, 1 away from that one. They're looking to group up here towards this A site flood. Should be a group push.
Gecko flash, and Thief still gets one despite not being able to see, but that's the defense of YFP countering with their own util and even the paint shells as MXS push against the wall, and YFP seems to not think anyone else is left in there. But Penny's clearing every angle, got the showstopper, whoever's left in tree. Oh, gonna be buried under, but Brock.
Spike, Dizzy's up top.
And these 1v1s, it's so incredible to watch. MXS in a 2 versus 1. This is for the map, and Brock's wingman will plant. Is Jonah elusive? You would expect people to be in tree. Now checking for the crossfire at baby door. Knows that's still closed. But you obviously don't want to open the door behind them. You want to try and take this engagement as quick as you can.
Oh, yeah!
Okay, he's got the initial shot out of Vic, but Jonah couldn't do it. MXS take map 1.
That was crazy, and that was so close too. And he had to play against double ult, so I understand that he had to pick up the pace at that point. But there had to be an issue right there, potentially right-hand models going out for Penny with that showstopper because he didn't see Brock towards that tree, and that probably was the implication there that allowed for MXS to get that 2 versus 1 in that last round to close it out. But at least they found some sort of fight towards the end there for YFP, but unfortunately it took too many rounds where they had to play for overtime from like what 12 to 6 at that scoreline. It was inevitable at this point.
Mata is still a top fragger. Brock in second there, but 31 kills out of Mata, almost clutching those 4 kills on that one round. Mata is just such a smart player and knows how to force the panic out of the other team. And YFP may start to panic because if they go 0-2, your fate is in the hands of other teams. But we're gonna have to find out what their fate is on the other side of this break.
You pros know, I'm going to show you a blurred clip, give a guess, lock it in, and then I'll show you the unblurred.
This is Alfier, who's from Lock-In 2023.
Well, this is Loud versus Fnatic, and they're playing against Loud. I'm pretty sure the crowd was like mainly Brazilian that they just lost at.
This is Alfier. I've watched it so many times. The comeback is so insane. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this comeback.
Pretty classic clip. It's Alfier against Loud in the finals.
Oh, this is Alfier. That was insane. It was like crazy.
That's Alpha here. I remember watching this and like, oh my god, dude, that's crazy.
That was Alfier. I had to think about it. I was like, is this a Hiko clip or no? It was Alfier.
Force it all down to Alfier.
I would say it's a Reaver, right? I think it's the Reaver option. I love skins, but I don't really focus on the noises.
Yeah, it sounds like the Reaver op.
Is that the Reaver op?
I think it's like the Reaver op.
Oh, it's Reaver op.
Okay, well, this is Reaver op.
Reaver operator. Dude, listen, I'm an opper, you know? That's my skin. That's like I wake up, I hear that in my ears, you know what I'm saying?
And let's see if you know your maps.
It's like sunset.
This is Breeze. To the right of mid, like to the left of window. I'm pretty sure this is like the elevated part.
That is on Breeze and mid above the little like a boathouse thing. Or, you know, like a little boat sign. I get you guys every year. You gotta give me more stuff.
Surely this is on Breeze.
It's just funny because I've seen this before. I think it's Breeze.
Oh my god, I'm gonna regret this, bro. I think I have to say Breeze. This is somewhere on Breeze. I don't know where.
Breeze. That looks like a nice restaurant, I have to say. I would love to go up there and have a nice little dinner.
fix.